The girl who made a champion cry. How a 19-year-old from a country with no tennis tradition just broke Wimbledon. Opening hook. She was ranked 147th in the world. She grew up in a country that had never produced a single Grand Slam contender. And on the 4th of July 2026, she dropped to her knees on the most hallowed court in tennis. Not because she lost, but because she had just destroyed the defending Wimbledon champion in front of a stunned center court crowd. By the end of this video, you'll understand why one tennis reporter called it the moment Philippine sport changed forever. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. This wasn't even the first time she did it to the same opponent. Stay with me, because what happens in the second half of the story is even crazier than the win itself. Here's the question I want you to sit with as we go through this. How does a girl from a country with no tennis infrastructure, no Grand Slam history, and barely any national funding for the sport end up beating a 6-time Grand Slam champion not once but twice, on 2 different continents, on 2 different surfaces, 16 months apart? Is it talent? Is it luck? Or is it something else entirely? Something that was built quietly, painfully, for over a decade before anyone was watching? Keep watching, because the answer to that question is the whole reason this story matters. And if you're the kind of person who loves an underdog story that turns out to be completely true, hit subscribe now, because we're about to go deep into one of the most remarkable rises women's tennis has seen in years. Forget center court for a second. Forget the crowd, the grass, the history. This story doesn't start at Wimbledon. It starts on a shell court at a country club in Pasig City, in the Philippines, with a little girl who was barely tall enough to swing a racket properly. Her name is Alexandra Eala. Everyone just calls her Alex. She was born in Quezon City, into a family that lived and breathed sport. Her father, Mike Eala, had been a competitive swimmer himself, a bronze medalist at the Southeast Asian Games back in the 1980s. Her mother, Riza, had also competed as a swimmer at a national level. Athletics ran in the family bloodline. But the sport that would define Alex's life wasn't swimming. It was her grandfather who put a racket in her hands. His name was Roberto Maniego, Lolo Bob, as Alex called him, and he became her very first coach. Not a formal academy, not a famous name, just her grandfather showing up every single day, teaching a toddler barely 3.5 years old how to hit a tennis ball. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. That arrangement, grandfather and granddaughter, day after day on a modest court, lasted for 10 years. From the age of 3.5 until she was 13, Lolo Bob was her coach, her training partner, her entire tennis education. Her older brother trained alongside her, and if you ask Alex what her original motivation was, it wasn't a Grand Slam dream. It was much simpler than that. She just wanted to beat her brother. There's something almost unbearably human about that detail. No cameras, no crowd, no sense of destiny. Just a little girl in ruffled socks and light-up shoes, chasing a tennis ball around a modest court in a country where tennis barely registers on the national radar. In the Philippines, basketball is religion. Tennis is a footnote. There was no pathway, no precedent, no next Alex Eala, who came before her to prove it was possible. She had to imagine the whole thing before anyone else could see it. The decision that changed everything. Here's where the story takes its first real turn, and it's a turn that most families never have to make. In 2018, Alex traveled to France to compete in Les Petits as one of the most prestigious junior tennis tournaments in the world for players aged 12 to 14. She won it, and that win did something nobody expected. It put her on the radar of scouts from the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. Think about what that offer actually meant. A tennis academy built by one of the greatest players who ever lived, in a country with a deep, storied tennis culture, was reaching out to a 12-year-old girl from a nation that had never sent a player anywhere near this level. It wasn't a small thing. It was a scholarship, and it was an escape hatch from a country where tennis infrastructure and funding were thin on the ground. 13 years old, Alex Eala got on a plane and moved to Spain. Sit with that for a second. 13. Old enough to understand exactly what she was leaving. Her parents, her brother, her home, her language, the rhythm of ordinary childhood. But not old enough to fully grasp what the next decade of her life would demand of her. On paper, the Rafa Nadal Academy was everything a young player could dream of. Elite courts, elite coaches, a training culture built around discipline and relentless competition. But no academy, no matter how prestigious, can manufacture away homesickness. No facility can replace a mother's voice or a grandfather's presence courtside. Alex trained daily, balanced her schoolwork in the afternoons, and lived through what by all accounts were genuinely difficult early years far from everything familiar. She stayed. She kept training. She eventually graduated from the academy in 2023, with, in a strange twist of fate, Iga Swiatek herself as a guest of honor at the ceremony. Long, grinding neither of them could have known this story is a straight line from talented kid to superstar. It isn't. And that's actually the most important part. Alex had real junior success. In 2020, she reached as high as world number 2 in the junior rankings. In 2022, she won the US Open Girls Singles title, becoming the first Filipina to win a junior Grand Slam in singles. She also picked up junior Grand Slam doubles titles at the French Open and Australian Open. On paper, this was a can't-miss prospect. But junior tennis and professional tennis are two completely different universes. On the WTA Tour, nobody cares about your junior resume. Nobody gives you ranking points for potential. For years, Alex Eala lived in that unglamorous middle zone of professional sport. Good enough to know the dream was real, but nowhere near secure enough to relax. Heading into 2025, she was ranked around 147th in the world. If you don't follow tennis rankings closely, let me put that number in context. 147 means you are fighting through qualifying rounds, chasing ranking points at smaller tournaments, and hoping for wildcard entries into the bigger events because your ranking alone won't get you in the door. That number carried weight far beyond a spreadsheet. It represented years away from home. It represented a family constantly asking the hardest question in sport. How much longer do we keep going before we know if this is actually going to work? Alex didn't stop asking herself to show up. And then came Miami, the match that announced her to the world. March 2025, the Miami Open. Alex Eala entered the tournament as a 19-year-old wild card, ranked 140th in the world. The only Filipino player competing on the professional tennis tour at all. Nobody expected her to make noise. Then she started winning. First, she beat Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion. Then she beat Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion at the time. 2 Grand Slam winners gone back-to-back. And then came the match that changed her career. In the quarterfinals, Alex faced Iga Swiatek, at that point a 5-time Grand Slam champion and the world number 2, a player renowned for suffocating opponents with relentless, control-oriented tennis. Swiatek was the kind of player who made rallies feel like a slow-motion trap closing shut. Alex beat her, 6-2, 7-5. Clean, controlled, decisive. The numbers from that match are almost startling. Swiatek committed 32 unforced errors compared to Alex's 12. Swiatek only converted a fraction of her service games efficiently, while Alex was winning break points at an extraordinary rate. This wasn't an upset built on nerves or luck. It was a teenager outplaying one of the best players alive. After the match, sitting courtside, Alex could barely process what had happened. "I'm just in disbelief right now," she said. "It's so surreal." She went on to reach her first WTA 1000 semifinal, eventually falling to Jessica Pegula. But the run had already done its job. It gave Alex something money and rankings never could: proof. Proof that she genuinely belonged in the same conversation as the players she used to watch from the outside. And once an athlete has that kind of proof in her bones, something shifts permanently. The question stops being, "Can I compete with them?" and starts becoming, "How many of them can I beat?" Building the case. If you think Miami was a one-off, the months that followed proved otherwise. Alex's ranking began climbing steadily. She reached the top 100, then broke into the top 80. She kept adding results on top of the Miami breakthrough, reaching her first WTA Tour final at Eastbourne, where she lost to Maya Joint in straight sets. Later that year, she became the first Filipina to win a Grand Slam main draw match, defeating Clara Towson at the US Open before falling in the next round. By early 2026, she had climbed into the world's top 32, an almost unthinkable number for a player who had been ranked 147 barely a year earlier. She picked up her first WTA singles title at the Guadalajara Open in Mexico, prompting Rafael Nadal himself to post his congratulations, calling her achievement a point of pride not just for herself but for the Philippines. And then came Wimbledon 2026, where Eala walked in as the number 29 seed, the first Filipino player ever seeded at a Grand Slam tournament. Pause on that for a moment. A country of well over 100 million people, and it took until 2026 to get a single Grand Slam seed. That's not a small footnote. That's a door being kicked open for an entire nation's relationship with the sport. The Wimbledon run begins. Wimbledon carries a weight that no other tournament in tennis quite matches. The all-white uniforms, the manicured grass, the quiet reverence before every serve, more than a century of tradition sitting on top of every single match. Walking into that environment as a 29th seed from a country with essentially zero Grand Slam history is its own kind of pressure. Alex's first-round opponent was Renata Zarazua. Alex was sharp, focused, dominant, closing it out 6-1, 6-2, becoming the first Filipino player ever to win a main draw singles match at Wimbledon. For most players, a milestone like that would be a moment to savor and exhale. Alex didn't. She moved straight into round 2 against Maya Joint, and this one wasn't clean. She dropped the opening set 3-6. For a moment, the match looked like it could expose a young player still adjusting to the pressure of a second week at a major. Then Alex responded in a way that made people pay attention. She won the second set 6-2, and then delivered a bagel in the third 6-0, closing out the match and, with it, another piece of history. The first Filipino singles player in the Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. Waiting in the third round was a familiar name. Iga Swiatek. Again, the rematch. If Miami was a surprise, this was something else entirely. Iga Swiatek arrived at Wimbledon 2026 not just as a top seed but as the defending champion. She had won her maiden Wimbledon title the previous year, taking her Grand Slam count to 6 across every surface she'd competed on. This wasn't a player caught off guard anymore. Swiatek knew exactly who Eala was. She had lived with the memory of Miami for 16 months. And this time it was on grass, on center court, with the entire tennis world watching. The first set was a war. Tense, physical, heavy with consequence on nearly every point. Neither player could fully pull away. The set stretched on, game after game, until it reached a tiebreak. And that tiebreak became the emotional center of the entire match. Alex surged ahead 5-2 in the tiebreak. For a moment it looked like she might close it out cleanly. But champions don't fold that easily. Swiatek clawed her way back, and suddenly the entire momentum of the match hung on single points. Swiatek earned not one, but 2 separate set points. Alex saved both of them. The tiebreak kept going. 9 points apiece. Then Alex found something extra, closing it out 11-9 in the tiebreak after 84 excruciating minutes of tennis just to decide the first set. The full match would stretch to 2 hours and 14 minutes on center court. Surviving that opening set changed the entire complexion of the match. In the second set, Alex jumped out to a 4-love lead. Swiatek, true to her history as one of the most relentless competitors in the sport, clawed back to 4-2. But Alex refused to let the door open any further. She closed out the match 6-2 in the second set. Alexandra Eala had beaten the defending Wimbledon champion, the same player she'd stunned in Miami 16 months earlier, on the biggest stage in tennis. The moment she fell to her knees. And then, right there on center court, she dropped to her knees. Not a rehearsed celebration. Not a polished, made-for-television moment. She simply collapsed under the emotional weight of what had just happened. Her hands on the grass, tears streaming down her face while the crowd roared around her. Athletes cry after big wins all the time. That alone isn't unusual. What made this different was what she said afterward, when she tried to put words to what had just happened and could barely get through the sentence. "I'm really emotional," she told the on-court interviewer, her voice breaking. Maybe for someone like Iga, who's won so many slams, or maybe for someone like Serena or Venus, This achievement may seem small. She couldn't finish the sentence before the tears took over again. But for someone who grew up in the Philippines, that was as far as she got. Because in that unfinished sentence was everything. The little girl at the shell courts in Pasig City. The grandfather who coached her from age 3.5. The 13-year-old who got on a plane to Spain not knowing if any of it would work out. The years ranked outside the top 100. The family back home, watching in the middle of the night, wondering how much longer this dream could be sustained before it either broke or paid off. All of it arrived at once on her knees on the most famous patch of grass in the sport. With that win, Alex Eala became the first Filipina to reach the second week, the fourth round, of a Grand Slam tournament, ever, in the entire history of the sport. And she'd done it by dethroning the defending champion, the second-seeded Elena Rybakina, also going out that same day to another underdog run, making it a day where the established order of women's tennis genuinely shook. But she wasn't done talking. Here's the part of the story that I think matters just as much as the win itself. And it's the reason you should keep watching to the very end, because it tells you everything about who this young woman actually is. Even through the tears, even in the rawest, most overwhelmed moment of her career, Alex made something very clear. She wasn't satisfied. She still had a fourth-round match to play against Jasmine Paolini, a former Grand Slam finalist and a genuinely dangerous opponent. She didn't sound like someone ready to coast on one unforgettable afternoon. She sounded hungry for the next one. And that's the real danger zone for any athlete who has just done something historic. The moment where the story becomes bigger than the player, where everyone around you wants to turn the achievement into a tidy, finished narrative before the athlete themselves is done writing it. Alex Eala didn't come this far, survive a decade of being away from home, grind through a ranking outside the top 100, just to have one perfect, cinematic afternoon and call it a career highlight. She came to compete. Full stop. Why this win matters beyond the scoreboard. It's worth zooming out here, because the significance of this moment goes well past one match, one tournament, even one career. The Philippines has never had a tennis tradition to speak of. Basketball dominates the national sporting conversation. Before Alex Eala, there was no template, no blueprint. No, this is how a Filipino athlete becomes a tennis star story that young players and their families could point to and believe in. Now there is. Alex Eala is the first Filipino player to be seeded at a Grand Slam, the first to win a Wimbledon main draw match, the first to reach the third round, then the fourth round of a major tournament in the Open era, the first to notch multiple wins over top 10 players and multiple Grand Slam champions, the first to break into the top 100 and then the top 50 and then the top 30. Every one of those firsts isn't just a personal milestone. It's permission for a young girl in Manila, in Cebu, in Davao, anywhere in a country of more than 100 million people to pick up a racket and actually believe this sport could be hers too. Permission for parents to believe tennis isn't reserved only for countries with decades of infrastructure and tradition behind them. And here's something important to understand about Alex Eala specifically. She isn't trying to be the next anyone. She's not chasing comparisons to Iga Swiatek or Emma Raducanu or any other young star who came before her. She is very much just the first Alex Eala, and that distinction matters because being first comes with its own unique kind of pressure. Every win afterward is measured against this moment. Every loss threatens to feel bigger than it should. That's the real challenge that begins now, after the tears have dried and the headlines have moved on. Because the sport doesn't stop to admire what just happened. The next opponent doesn't care about the childhood story, the years in Spain, or how many people back home stayed up until 1 a.m. to watch. The tour keeps moving forward. And the true test of a breakthrough like this isn't the moment itself. It's what comes after it. Before we go further, subscribe. If a story like this is the kind of thing that keeps you coming back. Real athletes, real sacrifice, real stakes, no fluff. This is exactly the kind of content we build this channel around. Hit that subscribe button now because we're going to keep following where Alex Eala's career goes from here, and there are a lot more stories like hers waiting in the pipeline. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. The bigger picture, what made this possible? It's worth pausing to really unpack what it actually took to get here, because the tendency in sports storytelling is to skip past the grind and go straight to the highlight reel. That's not fair to what Eala's career has actually required. 10 years with her grandfather as her only coach, starting before she could even properly hold a racket with two hands. A scholarship earned not through connections or money, but through winning an actual tournament in France as a preteen. A move across the world at 13 to a country where she didn't speak the language fluently, into an academy environment built to produce champions and unafraid to let players who couldn't hack the pressure fall away. She graduated from that academy in 2023, having balanced serious athletic training with an actual education the entire time. She spent years ranked outside the top 100, grinding through lower-tier tournaments, picking up ranking points wherever she could, taking wild cards into bigger events because her ranking alone couldn't get her in the door. She dealt with the ordinary heartbreaks of professional tennis, losing a maiden WTA final at Eastbourne, falling just short in tournament after tournament before the breakthroughs actually landed. None of that shows up in a highlight reel, but all of it is why the Miami win wasn't luck, and why the Wimbledon win wasn't a fluke. It was the natural output of a decade of unglamorous, repetitive, often lonely work finally colliding with the right moment on the right stage. What happens next? So where does this go from here? At Wimbledon 2026, Eala's path forward includes a murderer's row of potential opponents deeper into the draw. Top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka, former finalists, Grand Slam champions like Naomi Osaka, seasoned campaigners like Karolina Muchova and Belinda Bencic. Making a run like this at a slam brings you face-to-face with the very best players alive, immediately with no easing in period. Nobody, including Eala herself, is claiming this run guarantees a title. Professional tennis doesn't work that way, and it would be unfair to expect a player who was outside the top 100 barely 18 months ago to suddenly be a tournament favorite. But that's not really the point anymore. The point is that the questions surrounding Eala have fundamentally changed. It used to be, can a player from the Philippines even compete at this level? Miami answered that. Then it became, can she back it up and prove it wasn't a one-off? Her ranking climb and her Guadalajara title answered that. Then Wimbledon asked an even harder question. Can she handle the weight of history, of an entire nation's attention, and still perform under that pressure on the sport's most storied court? She answered that 1-2 twice, saving 2 set points in the biggest moment of the biggest match of her career to do it. So now the question isn't whether Eala belongs on this stage. She's already proven, repeatedly, across different surfaces and different continents, that she does. The real question is simply how far this can go. And given everything we've just walked through, given a decade of grandfather-taught fundamentals, a scholarship earned through raw performance, years of grinding through a ranking that gave her no comfort, and now 2 career-defining wins over the same 6-time Grand Slam champion, it would be a mistake to bet against her. Closing. There's a phrase Eala has repeated in interviews, something her grandfather told her from the very beginning, back when there were no cameras, no crowds, no Grand Slam dreams, just a little girl trying to beat her brother on an ordinary afternoon. If you want it, you work for it. That sentence followed her from a shell court in Pasig City, across an ocean to Mallorca, through a decade of loneliness and grinding improvement, all the way to center court at Wimbledon, where on the 4th of July 2026, in front of the entire tennis world, it finally looked like everyone understood what her family had believed all along. This was never impossible. It was just waiting for someone stubborn enough to prove it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed so you catch the next chapter of this story as it happens, because something tells me this is far from over. Let me know in the comments what you think happens next for Eala, and I'll see you in the next one.